Okay, we're live. I heard the sound twice for a second because I had YouTube open. I forgot. I hope that didn't carry over into the live stream. But we're here with another discussion. I'm not sure which number this is. Check the playlist. You'll figure it out. But we're talking about Torah observance today. And so we're back with Brother Ruben, and we're here to talk about Torah observance. So Brother Ruben, how you doing? And if you can, establish your position specifically on the Torah, like as in, do you believe it saves us, or is it just necessary to follow still? So go ahead.
I'll mute myself when you're not talking, so I think that'll help. So hello, shalom to all those watching on YouTube, especially to Yasharel, which is Israel. I believe that was the original way that it was pronounced. So the 12 tribes of Israel. We've discussed John, the call to all of Israel and the Messiah and what he come to do. And he said that he came for the lost sheep of Israel. So just to kind of keep this brief, I do not believe that the law or the Torah or Torah is Hebrew for instructions. I don't believe that the instructions save us. I believe that we are saved by faith through grace and trust and obedience to the Messiah. Notice that I said obedience because, in the Torah and in the prophets and the writings, it says that obedience is better than sacrifice. So I don't believe that the law saves us, but I do believe that it is still binding on us. In a sense, we must guard it and keep it. It will go forth during the 1,000-year millennial reign to all nations, and I believe that Yasharel, the 12 tribes, that they will administer teachings and doctrines. They will be shepherds and teachers to all nations, and the law will be established, on this earth. So Jeremiah chapter 31 simply says, in short form, that he will write his law or his Torah upon our hearts, and that he will no longer hold our hands, that he will give us a new heart, and that he will circumcise our heart. So there's a lot that believe that we can be saved through our own righteousness and observing the law, and I don't believe that. So let's get into it. I'd like to hear your take on it.
Okay, so basically, just you heard from him. He does not believe that the law can save you. So I'm not going to be pressing him on that. So, you said you wanted to hear my view just so we understand each other, and then all right. So the way I see the law, and we're probably going to talk about Romans in a little bit. The purpose of the law is to reveal sin, reveal that you cannot be holy, you cannot live up to God's standard. So it reveals that fact, and I believe that's in Romans 7 that it talks about that, if I'm not mistaken. I might maybe have to find it. And so in comes Christ, that is our Savior, who lives up to the standard, right? His righteousness becomes imputed to us, and so since that happens, now we are freed from the debt of the law. Now that doesn't mean that you can now go murdering people, because now that we're under grace, we seek to follow what's called Christ's law, the law of Christ. And so Jesus on earth in John 14:15 says, "If you love me, keep my commandments." And his commandments would include going out making disciples, love one another, and love God with all your heart, soul, and strength, and things like that. Christ commanded on earth. So I don't believe that we're necessarily still required to keep laws such as, dietary laws. Maybe they could be helpful. I haven't really looked into the, health benefits. So if you want to do it for that, go ahead. But I don't believe it's a strict requirement anymore where all of these laws in the Torah are still binding, because we are under grace now. So I was thinking we kind of go back and forth with passages, because I had a few passages in mind, but I want to keep this structured so we could go like, maybe you can bring one up, then I can bring one up, and then we can kind of talk about it for a little bit and go from there.
Yeah, that sounds good. Just a little side note, real quick. Do you have a pen and piece of paper on you?
I've got a pencil. I can grab a paper. I think I got a notebook here. Yeah, I can do that. You need me to write stuff down?
Yeah, and this is just in regards, real quick, to our last conversation, because I don't feel like we got far enough, and I wasn't fully able to explain myself. So I was just going to give you some scriptures, and then maybe we could just touch base again on that subject as well.
On the issue of the names?
Yeah.
Well, I personally would rather stick to the topic today, but we can try to cover that another time, maybe.
Okay. I was
If
just
you want me
wanting
to
to
write
give
down,
you.
if you want me
Yeah,
to
I just
write
want to
down the
give you
verse?
some scriptures.
Yeah, we can do that real quick. Yeah, no problem.
Right. So Exodus 3, 14 and 15, along with Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 9. That's my foundation. Genesis 17, 1 with Revelation 1, verse 8.
1. Revelation 1:8.
Isaiah 12, 4 and Psalm 68, 4.
Does Psalm 68:4 go with Isaiah 12:4?
Yep.
Or just, okay.
Yep. Yeah, I'm doing them in pairs, and just four more, John.
Psalm 68:4.
Yep.
Oh,
All right. Yep. And then Isaiah 9, 6 and Hebrews 7, 2. And then two more. Nehemiah 9, 5 and Romans 9, 17. And that's just for the future.
Romans 9:17 it is?
Yep.
Okay. I want to make sure I write this down properly. All right. But we'll explore that maybe another time. Maybe if we still have time, we can stay on after the stream to just talk about it for a little bit, and then maybe we can cover it in the future. I don't know how far in the future, but we'll get to that another time. So, the Torah, right? So, did you want to start with a passage or a verse, or you want me to kind of start with one?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Let's go to Galatians. Give me a second. I gotta remember where this starts. Okay, verse 21. And I can hit present. I don't know why this is going so slow. Okay. Okay, Galatians chapter 4. Actually, hold on. No. All right. I should probably fix my settings. I don't want the cross references there. Okay. All right, there we go. So Galatians chapter 4, verses 21, excuse me, Galatians 4, 21 to the end of the chapter, and then there's Galatians 5, 1 as well. And I'll try to walk through this kind of quickly, and then if you want, you can kind of pick apart some of the things I say. But essentially, we have here a discussion on being under the law from Paul here. And he says, "Tell me, you who desire to be under the law, do you not hear the law?" Verse 22, "For it is written that Abraham had two sons, the one by the bondwoman, that's Hagar, the other by a free woman, that's Sarah. Verse 23, but he who was of the bondwoman was born according to the flesh, and he of the free woman through the promise, which things are symbolic. So that's verse 24. And Paul's going to start making a practical application and interpretation of, I believe, Genesis 16 to 17, parts of it. He's not going verse by verse, but he's going to be a summary interpretation, an apostolic interpretation from the inspiration of the Holy Spirit to explain the symbolic meaning of the lineage of the bondwoman Hagar and the lineage of the free woman Sarah. So he continues, for these are the two covenants, the one from Mount Sinai, which gives birth to bondage, which is Hagar. He says these are the two covenants, right? So there's one that came from Mount Sinai that came from the time of Moses. Verse 25, sorry if you hear my dog barking. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and corresponds to Jerusalem, which now is, and is in bondage with her children. So he's applying Hagar and interpreting it symbolically, not saying that this story didn't actually happen, but there's a symbolic meaning to it, and is applying it to the Jews and to the law. Verse 26, but the Jerusalem above is free, which is the mother of us all. So he talks about a Jerusalem from above. Verse 27, for it is written, rejoice, O barren, you who do not bear, break forth and shout, you who are not in labor, for the desolate has many more children than she who has a husband. Now we, brethren, as Isaac was, are children of the promise. Now he's not just talking about just Israelites here, because we know Paul talks about how by being in Christ, you are of the lineage of Abraham. So he's not just speaking to Israelites here, and he's saying that we are children of the promise through Isaac. Verse 29, but as he who was born according to the flesh then persecuted him who was born according to the Spirit, even so it is now. Verse 30, nevertheless, what does the scripture say? Cast out the bondwoman and her son, for the son of the bondwoman shall not be heir with the son of the free woman. Verse 31, so then, brethren, we are not children. Oh, excuse me 1 second. Okay, I'm sorry. Just got to charge my computer, but here we go. Verse 31. So then, brethren, we are not children of the bondwoman, but of the free. Right? So those in Christ, if you read Galatians 3, are children of the bondwoman, are not of the bondwoman, but of the free woman, Sarah. We are of the lineage of Abraham. We're the promises that God made to Abraham about benefiting all nations is applying to those in Christ. And finally, we get to chapter 5, verse 1. Stand fast, therefore, in liberty by which Christ has made us free, and do not be entangled again with the yoke of bondage. Remember, towards the beginning here in verse 21, he was talking about being under the law, and he's applying Hagar and interpreting it symbolically to talk about the law. And now he says in chapter 5, verse 1, that let us therefore stand fast in liberty, in the liberty by which Christ has made it free, and do not be entangled again with the yoke of bondage, which refers to the law. And if you want, you can go ahead and respond now. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I would love to respond. So it's my understanding that this is talking about two different covenants, the covenant of the flesh and the covenant of the spirit. Yah told Sarah that she will bear a son, and Sarah got impatient, and Abraham got impatient. So Sarah gave Hagar to Abraham to rush the process. So Ishmael was born under the flesh, and Isaac was born under the Spirit, under the direction and the Holy Spirit of Yah. So I do not believe that section 21 through 31 has anything to do really with the law. Chapter 5, and why that breaks there is because that is talking about taking on the circumcision, and we know about circumcision in Romans. I believe it talks about circumcision and how it profits you nothing if you can't keep the entirety of the law. And Paul does teach us that we don't have to seek physical circumcision. But the circumcision that we are to seek is the writing of the Torah upon our hearts. That's the spiritual circumcision that we're talking about. So it's my understanding that 21 through 31 is talking about the two different covenants, the covenant of the flesh and the covenant of the spirit. And that the children of the desolate one will be more than those who has a husband. The desolate one is, of course, a woman without children, barren. The one with a husband, like I really think that this is it's really a little deeper than what we think, because I think of Satan and how Satan is a husband or a master to the sons of disobedience. And then you have the sons of Elohim, which is judge or master or mighty one in Hebrew, that Yah has sons of him, and Satan has sons. So the scriptures, this comes to my mind, is wide is the way that leads to destruction, and many are upon it, but narrow is the way that leads to life, and few find it. So after I read, for the children of the desolate one will be more than those who have a husband, then that's kind of what I think about is that there's more unbelievers than there are believers, and that it's only through patience, it's only through faith, it's only through trust in what Yah says, which is very important, that we believe on Yah and what he says, then we will be accounted as righteous. So I will comment briefly, and then I'll back up. Chapter 5, verse 1 talks about a yoke of slavery. That yoke is what you mentioned earlier about believing that the law can save you. That it's a yoke, and that is the stance of a lot of religions and a lot of beliefs out there, that you can save yourself through your good deeds, and that's a lie. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it without taking up too much more of your
time. Okay. Let's see. I guess I'll kind of cover a few of the things you said. It sounded like you were trying to I don't know if you were trying to disconnect chapter 5 with chapter 4. Can you just correct me if I'm wrong there? Were you trying to say that there's a break there, or do you believe it's a continuous flow from chapter 4? Just correct me real quick.
I do believe that it is a break. Okay. I believe that 21 through 31 is talking about the two different covenants, the covenant in the flesh and the covenant in the spirit. And then 5 verse 1 is talking about circumcision and the bondage of trying to believe that you're righteous through keeping the law.
Okay, so then chapter 4 is about one thing, but then okay, I got it. The issue I am having is when he says stand fast therefore, right? When Paul talks like that, he's continuing an argument that he presented before and continuing the flow to the next. So, right, like you see that in you see that in Romans, for example. when he says therefore, right, he was continuing based on the things he said maybe in the previous chapter, maybe in the previous 15 verses, but he will say that in certain sections in scripture to make an application from what was said before. And so here in chapter 5, I do think that this phrase here, stand fast therefore, he's trying to make a continuation based on what he said in chapter 4 here, verses 21 to 31.
So if I can real quick respond to that, I see where you're coming from, and the thing is that you had mentioned that this is about the law, but to me it's not about the law. It's about the two different covenants, the covenant of the spirit and the covenant of the flesh. So to me, it's okay that Paul said that, to stand firm, therefore. So what translation are you reading? Because that's another thing too, is that mine doesn't say therefore stand. Mine says, for freedom Mashiach has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. So go ahead.
I have NKJV. Which one do you have? Let's do this.
I read the ESV.
ESV. Oh, okay, that's okay. Let's go up. Whoops. ESV. That good on verse.
Can we agree? Can we agree that being in the flesh is slavery, and being in the spirit of the Most High is freedom?
Correct. Yes. For freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to the yoke of slavery. Okay, interesting. And then over here, stand fast, therefore, in liberty by which Christ has made free, and do not be entangled again with a yoke of bondage. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's a little different. You know what I mean?
Wait a minute.
But so I mean, I will give you this, John, that I think he is talking about being in the spirit versus being in the flesh. There's a difference between being in the spirit and being in the flesh. Abraham and Sarah got in the flesh, and Abraham slept with Hagar. And being in the spirit, they would have waited like they were supposed to, and things would have been a lot different.
Okay. I think we can address some of those things. I want to stick on this point just for a second. So I'm not sure what it is in the Greek, but let's set the Greek aside, and let's just say, for the sake of argument, it doesn't have the word therefore like in the NKJV there. So isn't the freedom that he's speaking about continued that from the freedom that's spoken about in the previous chapter? Because remember, he's talking about us being of the free woman, right? And notice verse 31. So brothers, we are not children of the slave, but of the free woman. Let me actually change the ESV so we can have less confusion.
So I think, John, what just kind of threw me off was that, and I'd like you to finish too with your thought of what threw me off is that you brought up the law. And this was the first set of scriptures you come at me with. So okay. To me, it's not talking about the law. It's not talking about if the law is valid or it's not. This is talking about, yes, freedom in the spirit, and yes, slavery in the flesh.
Okay, so what about, for example, verse 24? Now, this may be interpreted allegorically. Well, it said symbol. That's the same thing, symbolically, allegorically. These women are two covenants, and he says one is from Mount Sinai, bearing children for slavery. For slavery. She is Hagar, right? What is that? Is that about the flesh, or what is this from Mount Sinai? Because that sounds like the law to me.
Mount Sinai is the mountain that Yah gave the law to Yasharel. So it is my understanding that her lineage down through Ishmael, they believe in the law. They believe in, the Torah. And, I don't know a whole lot about the Quran, but I know it does talk quite a bit about Abraham and Ishmael and things like that. So it's my understanding that they have that understanding that the law can save them if they keep it like they're supposed to, But if you'll notice that now Hagar, verse 25, Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. She corresponds to the present Jerusalem, for she is in slavery with her children. But let me see, where was it? Now this may be interpreted as these two women coming from that experience slavery. She was okay. So this is in reference to Sarah being barren for a period of time, and that Sarah kind of represents the New Jerusalem, and Hagar represents the Jerusalem as we know it now. For the Jerusalem above is free, verse 26, and she is our mother. Sarah is considered our mother, right? So, I cannot get past that this is the spirit versus the flesh, and it really has nothing to do with the law.
I was muted. I'm sorry. Do you want to bring up a verse next then? Because I think we've exhausted our points here.
Jeremiah chapter 31. So I would like.
I'll put it on the screen so people can see.
Okay. So I would like the audience to notice that when John was asked, what is his stance? What is his argument? That John referenced the New Testament. He went to, we were in Galatians, right? But I personally will go back to the Old Testament, the foundation. So Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 33. Would you read those for us, John?
Sure. 31 to 33 you wanted? All right. So, behold, the days are coming, declares, I'll just say, Yah, declares Yah. Whoops, hold on. Made a mistake here. This app. When I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant that they broke, though I was their husband, declares Yah. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yah. I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I just want to highlight that it says that he will put his law on their hearts. And I would also like to find, if we can, and look up the Hebrew for the word law there, and the Hebrew for the words new covenant. Because, and the reason why I say that, John, is because I don't feel like the English does this justice.
You wanted the Hebrew for law?
No, for new covenant.
Oh, for new covenant? Give me a
Yep.
second. Oh, let me go back up. It's in verse 31. Okay. Hold on. I gotta zoom out. Okay. New covenant. I think it's 2 words. Because we have covenant here, and then we have new.
Okay. Can you scroll down and find it when it's broke apart?
Let me do this. Whoops. Like this? Is this what you're asking for?
Yep. Yep. So it's Brit Hadashah in the Hebrew. Now, can you look up the definition of new?
Actually, like this. So it's in order. Yeah. Where's my mouse? There it is. Oh, I gotta click this.
Yep.
We got the outline, the Strong's definition. Yeah. So new thing, fresh in the outline, Strong's definitions from H2 318, new, fresh, new thing.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't. Wait a minute. It didn't even show up. What the heck? That's weird. Yeah, there it is. I can zoom in too, so it's easier to see. Let's move this. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can we go? Can we go to the word law? There.
Yeah. Though that's in verse 33. Give me a second. Oh no. What am I pressing here? Come on. Okay. Law is. You wanted it like this again, where it's all separated like this, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, Torat or Torati.
Okay.
I'm not gonna try to pronounce it.
So right. So the root of that word is Torah, and it means instructions. So the Father, Yah, is promising and declaring that he will write his Torah upon our hearts. And all scholars and most believers understand that the Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible that Moses wrote with the help of Yah right there by his side. So that's one of my foundational scriptures, that Yah has not done away with the law, that we must uphold it and we must keep it, not to produce our salvation, but because we love him. And it says, those who love me keep my commandments. That's 1 John chapter 2. We don't have to go there, but that's my argument. That's what we're discussing right now. I don't have all things figured out. I don't understand all things. So I study, I pray, I seek the Most High, but that's my argument right now, that the law is going to be on our heart, and therefore that is what should come out of us, because it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but it's what comes out of him.
All right. This is a little interesting. The outline has here as one of the definitions instruction in messianic age. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure why. We could kind of explore right now. It's very interesting that it writes that. I don't know if it has a example here. Let's do this. I want to see if it describes it here. Of Deuteronomic code. Okay. Oh, here it is. Instruction in Messianic age. So we have Isaiah 2:3 equals Micah 4:4, Isaiah 42:4, Isaiah 51:4, and Jeremiah 31:33. So I mean, I don't know if I want to make this claim here, but it sounds like this could not necessarily refer to the Mosaic law itself, but an instruction in the Messianic age. Because remember, when it talks about commandments there in 1 John 2 and John 14, it is the direct words of Christ, not necessarily going back to the Torah. So, like for example, directly in John 14, there are things that Jesus said, or in that section around there, I believe. So I mean, I don't want to sit here and tell you that's definitely what it is. I don't know what you think of that. It seems possible because
Can we read a couple of those passages? Isaiah
yeah.
2:3, Micah 4:4, and because
Actually, let me do this.
I've got my thoughts on it. So
I think I can. Yeah, I can just copy all these and paste it. Let's go up. I think Isaiah 42:4. I think that one actually talks about that the servant will come with a law, I believe. Here, let's pull this up. Okay. Isaiah 2:3, and many people shall come and say, come, let us go to the mountain of Yah, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of Yah from Jerusalem.
yeah, so that's kind of the foundation, right? It said Isaiah 2:3 equals all of these things. So it's my understanding that the messianic age, which is after Messiah was born through the Virgin Miriam, that is the messianic age. But John, we have a disagreement on who the Messiah is. So that is a root problem that will get in the way of our discussions. But because I believe that Yahusha is Yahuwah, Yah the Father, and that Yahusha did not come to bring something new, but actually to renew what was already established.
Okay. I just want to read through these. So Micah 4:4 also said, but they shall sit they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid, for the mouth of Yahweh of hosts has spoken. Okay, hold on. I don't know if the word shows up there. Doesn't give me a specific here. I think this is supposed to be the cross reference to Isaiah 2:3 here. Isaiah 2:42:4. He will not grow faint or be discouraged till he has established justice in the earth, and the coastlands wait for his law. So it was like right here. The coastlands wait for his law. Now this is a messianic prophecy, so there's a law that will come with the Messiah. So I think it was connecting there the law spoken of in Jeremiah 31:33 to the messianic law. And I guess we would disagree on that. Because you would
Yeah,
say that it's the same in Jeremiah 31. You would say it's the same Torah that is being written on the hearts, and that in the new covenant, it's not a new covenant with new things. It is just a renewed covenant. So you would say that the Torah is written on their hearts. Whereas I'm thinking the way I would see it here is there's a law in the messianic age. There's Isaiah 51:4. Give attention to me, my people, and give ear to me, my nation. For a law will go out from me, and I will set my justice for a light to the peoples. I think I want to make one more point, and then maybe we can move on to another passage. But this one right here, Isaiah 51:4, it sounds like that it's talking about another law, was just the way it's worded. Like it says, "For a law will go out from me." It sounds like a future. I mean, you can say what you want on that. And we can move on.
yeah, I would definitely like to go up and find out what verse 1 and 2 and who's speaking directly there. So, and then if we could, I've got a couple of passages out of First John. I think that I would like to discuss too, concerning a new law, or a messianic age. Or see, I don't believe in dispensationalism, so I don't separate this time period from this time period. I believe that Yah stays the same, that he don't change. So he's the same as he is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So for me, nothing's changed and nothing's new. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was muted again. So I mean, I have the chapter here. You wanna? Can you mute for really quick? Because I hear the background noise. Thank you. Do you want to quickly say anything on Isaiah 51, or should we move on to another? I'll bring up another passage, and then we can go to First John, I believe, chapter 2.
No, just read 1 through 4.
All right, yeah. So it says, "Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness, you who seek Yahweh. Look to the rock from which you were hewn, and to the quarry from which you were dug. Look to Abraham your father, and to Sarah who bore you. For he was but one when I called him, that I might bless him and multiply him. For Yahweh comforts Zion, he comforts all her waste places, and makes her wilderness like Eden. Her desert like the garden of Yahweh. Joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving and the voice of song. Give attention to me, my people, and give ear to me, my nation, for a law will go out from me, and I will set my justice for a light to the peoples." That kind of sounds like language from Isaiah 42, I think. "My righteousness draws near, my salvation has gone out, and my arms will judge the peoples. The coastlands hope for me, and for my arm they wait." Oh, that's verse 5. I'm sorry. So I'm guessing this is messianic. Law will go out from me. You're still on mute.
Can we go to Genesis 26 real quick?
Yeah, and then I guess I'll bring up another passage because Genesis 26.
Verse 5.
Mhm.
If you could read that.
It says, "But because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws."
Right. So this is showing us that Abraham had the laws of the Most High before they were given at Mount Sinai to Moses and then to all of Yasharel. So when I go back to Isaiah, we were in 51, right? We'll go back to Isaiah because it's really important, John, that we're able to connect the scriptures. So when we go back to Isaiah 51, it literally says that for a law will go out from me, and I will set my justice for a light to the people. So I had shared with you that the law will go forth from Zion. There's only one law. I don't believe and do not hold to there's two different laws. This is one of the reasons why I left Christianity, is because they claim that what was brought by Yeshua was something new. And I don't believe that. So I just wanted to make that quick reference back to Genesis 26, where Abraham had the law before it was given.
All right. I guess then we'll move on to another passage. I want to talk about, because last time we were on Colossians 2, we didn't really get to the deep in depth of it enough. And I want to say really quick, the reason I'm mainly going to New Testament because I'm not aware of so much of the Old Testament. Speaking of this, because the way I see the Old Testament, the New Testament is, I guess you can say, quote unquote, hidden within it, meaning that you find teaching of the New Testament in the Old Testament, but it's not quite as explicit because remember, it's prophetic, right? So during that time, you wouldn't understand the Passover necessarily as referring to the Messiah yet, but once he does come and reveals that, so that I just want to clear up. That's why I'm quoting New Testament passages. So let's go to, I think it starts from 11, goes to 17. And so I don't know if I'm going to walk through this now, but I think you heard the things I said before on this. Do you want to just tell us how you understand Colossians 2:11 to 17? I think if I remember what you said, I'm going to try to cover some of the things you said, and if I'm forgetting anything, correct me. I believe that you were arguing that verses 16 to 17 are not suggesting that the law is no longer in effect, but the point it's making is that let no one judge you for doing these things, for keeping the Sabbath or keeping a festival or a new moon, and that these are a shadow of the things to come, and the substance is Christ. Is that correct?
Yes, pretty much.
Okay. And then I believe, because that was in the open panel, I was talking about how the context is talking about, talking about circumcision and how we have the circumcision of Christ, right? There's this the circumcision of the heart. That's what it's referring to. And it talks about the work of Christ on the cross. We're buried in baptism, raised with him through faith. And then it says in verse 13, "And you who were dead in your trespasses and uncircumcision of your flesh, God made alive together with him, having forgiven all our trespasses." And verse 14 is very interesting because it says, "By canceling the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands, this he set aside, nailing it to the cross." So that sounds like, and maybe you can give me your understanding. It sounds like that Paul's saying there that this record of debt, whatever it is, it sounds like the law, and that these demands are nailed to the cross. So I mean, if you want to give your understanding, go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to, John, because this is not talking about keeping the law or upholding the law or observing the law. That it's not. It's talking about another law. If we'll go to Romans chapter 7, verse 23, we can get some context of what Paul's talking about here. And we can start in 21. 7:21. He says, "So I find to be a law that when I want to do right, evil lies close at hand. But I delight in the law of Elohim in my inner being. But I see in my members another waging war against the law of my mind and making me captive to the law of sin that dwells in my members." See, in verse 23, it says that there is another law. There's another law. And that law is the law of sin and death. Back to Colossians chapter 2. That is the record of debt that we owe, that stands against us, that we are not able in our human flesh to keep the law of the Most High perfectly. We're not. That is what is the debt that we owe when we broke that law. You break one, you break all. I believe that James says that. You break one, you break all. And it does say in Romans that Yah threw us all into disobedience so that he can show us mercy. And we all know that we are a sinful man in our flesh. So the record of debt is us breaking that law, and we deserve death.
Give me a second. There's all right. Let's see here. Whoops. You know what? Let's do this. Do you want to go to? I think we'll move on from that one because I kind of want to. I don't how much time we have left here. We've been here. Do you still have did you still have some time?
I do, and real quick though, I just want to highlight real quick that this is what he nailed to the cross. He took our penalty that we owed, which is death, and therefore now we can live through him, right? But I wanted to comment just real quick on verses 16 and 17, and like you said, that is my understanding, is that when you do these things, don't let anyone judge you, for these are a shadow of what's to come. And that, to me, should be very clear that the Shabbat, the new moon, the festivals, like these are an introduction to more of what's going to go on along those lines. And it says that the substance is Messiah. He is the substance of what we hope for. And that the festivals and the new moons and the Sabbaths and, being able to eat and party and things like that, that those are something that Messiah gave us that we can enjoy now, and there will be greater understanding and more of these celebrations in the millennial reign. So yeah, where were we going?
Yeah, I wanted to look at I want to go directly to the Messiah's words because we've been in Paul. I don't want to just keep spamming Paul like, oh, what about this? Well, you know, I want to kind of move from that just for a little bit. Maybe we'll go back to Paul towards the end. I'm not sure, but I want to go to Matthew 5 when Jesus says, "I have not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law," because I know we're gonna have very vastly different understandings of what that means. So it'd be nice if we can kind of cover it because that's one of the biggest passages on that issue on this issue. So we could cover it. Actually, let me start from verse 17. Get this here. This can load, please. So we can go here, kind of cover this, and try to understand. I think verses 17 to 18 are the main ones there. Because I know people will bring it up where they'll say, so look, I'll try. So if I'm understanding you correct, you're probably going to say that this is talking about how, if I remember correctly, you said fulfill means to, uh, it was something along the lines of not renew. It was, I don't remember. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Do you want to give your understanding of Matthew 5:17 there? I'll give mine, and then we can kind of go through that.
Yes, yes. Matthew chapter 5, starting in.
Yeah, for because I know some people are gonna say like, oh, he just wants to go to Paul. So I think it'd be nice if we can go to this kind of passage where it's there's two clashing understandings and just go directly to the Messiah as well instead of just going to Paul. Because we can talk about Paul all day, but you know, this is also, I think we should also understand what the Messiah said. So yeah, go ahead if you want to give your understanding.
Yeah, so it just simply says, and I do like to keep things simple. It says, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets." So that word abolish, we know what it means. Abolish means to do away with it, and to be gone with it, and as if it's no more. So he did not come to do away with it or to completely get rid of it. He said no, or the prophets. But I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one iota or not one dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished. So again, he's reiterating what he said. He didn't come to abolish it, didn't come to do away with it. Not one little swipe of the law will be done away with until all things are accomplished. And then it goes on to say that, the one whoever relaxes in one of these or teaches others to do the same will be called the least in the kingdom, but whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So that would be my question is, teaching what? Right? I would like to be great in the kingdom, sure. So it's telling me that if I teach the law, then I will be called great in the kingdom. That's my understanding in short.
All right. I just want to look at this because I have a few kind of things I would like to say. So, number one, I would agree that abolishing the law and prophets would be a bad thing. I think the interpretation of what abolish means is where there's the confusion because people look to Christians today and say, look at that, aren't you abolishing the law, which is what Jesus said not to do? And I would say no, because we believe that the law is fulfilled. We'll get to that in a second. So I think I would agree that abolishing the law, which actually here, Fight League beautifully gave me the Greek word. It's destroy, demolish, dismantle. Like we're not saying here destroy the law. That's not what we're saying. So I have not come to abolish, but to fulfill them. Now, the word for fulfill here shows up every time. Most of the time when it's talking about an Old Testament passage, like remember when he quotes Isaiah 7:14, that the word might be spoken. Excuse me, that the word might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet Isaiah. The virgin shall conceive and give birth to a son, his name shall be called Emmanuel. Right, the word fulfill in Matthew is referring to that every time it's used in the context of Old Testament sayings. That this saying that is spoken, it came to pass and fulfilled the prophecy. Now, before we talk about the law, let's look at the phrase there, or the word prophets, right? So, when we understand a prophecy has been fulfilled, it is no longer in effect. We're no longer waiting for it, right? So, like the Messiah, right? We're not waiting for the Messiah anymore. He has come. That doesn't mean that we now erase all the prophecies of the Messiah or forget about all the prophecies, because they're an important attestation to the Messiah himself. So we don't. I don't get rid of Isaiah and all the Old Testament just because Jesus is here or Yahusha is here, because we have the prophets that are there pointing to him as a testimony to people like, let's say, a modern rabbinic Jew who rejects the Messiah, right? Now, that's how I see the word fulfill there, because that's how it's used throughout Matthew. It's like to accomplish, right? So when we think of it in the context of the law, not only does the law kind of point to the Messiah, but he also will fulfill its demands. So, like you said, we're not saved by doing the law. All right, me practicing the commandments isn't going to save me. There's no salvation in that. So I would say in that sense, Christ or the Messiah will fulfill the law and prophets. There's no longer any waiting or looking to them. They have been accomplished, right? So I wouldn't say doing away with in the sense of just completely getting rid of, but I would say that Christ has accomplished it, or Messiah accomplished it for us, so there's no more need to try to keep the law for our salvation or things like that. Now, verse 18, I might go a little long here, so I apologize, but verse 18 is another one that's used because people will ask, well, Jesus is, or the Yahusha is saying that the law will not pass away until heaven and earth passes away. I don't think that's the point he's trying to make there. I think the point he's trying to make is all has to be accomplished first, right? It says here, not one dot or iota, which is like in the Hebrew, those smallest marks in the Hebrew. So he's saying none of these will pass from the law until all is accomplished. So everything has to be accomplished first until it quote unquote passes away, right? So I believe that on the cross, that's what was accomplished, right? For example, I mean, you can see John 19:30, it is finished, things of that nature, right? Remember, we talked about Colossians 2, nailed to the cross. So Christ accomplished what was needed to fulfill the law and prophets on the cross. I don't think that the only prophecy we're waiting for now is the second coming. We're waiting for the second coming of the Messiah. So the law and the prophets have been fulfilled in that respect. And one more thing I would like to say, we see a lot of teachings that seem to contradict the Old Testament. So, for example, verses 31 to 32, it is also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. But wait a minute, Moses allowed divorce, right? If in fact, if you go to, I believe, chapter 19 of Matthew, if I'm not mistaken, it's also Mark 10, in case I'm wrong there. Divorce is spoken of, right? Divorce is spoken of, and Moses permits it. And so oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought. Let me close the chat here. It's a little distracting. And so on that point, so the Jews and Pharisees are trying to press him, but wait a minute, Moses allowed divorce, and Jesus makes the point, or Yahushua makes the point. He allowed it for the hardness of your hearts, but it says, and then he quotes Genesis 2:4. No, not 2:4. Genesis 2:24. Sorry. Let a man leave his wife, let a man leave his household, be joined to his wife, and the two become one flesh. And then he says, Let not man separate what God has joined together. So someone might say that, look at this, Jesus is contradicting the Old Testament. And on this point, I would say that no, he's already fulfilled it. So he can say things like this. He's going to fulfill the law and prophets. So he can make these kinds of teachings that seem to quote unquote contradict the Old Testament, because all's already going to be fulfilled. And I think, I don't know if that's one there. There's also the eye and eye, tooth for a tooth part. And yeah, so I made a few points, so we can kind of, if you want me to like go, we can go one by one and kind of cover it, because it might be hard to remember.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the first things that I would like to comment on is you had said that you had referenced Colossians 2 and nailed to the cross. And you'd also mentioned that, the word fulfill. And, it does say that, these things will be accomplished, right? Until all these things are accomplished. But then you referenced what Yeshua said on the cross, and it is finished. And that the only thing that we're waiting on right now is the Messiah's return. So I see where you're coming from, and we do have prophecies that have been fulfilled, but there are a lot of prophecies that have not been fulfilled, and one of those examples is the destruction of Damascus, the complete destruction of Damascus. We also have in First Thessalonians and Second Thessalonians talks of the son of perdition. That's not been fulfilled. We have Revelation where the trumpets and the bowls and the vials would be poured out. I don't think that those things have been fulfilled. So that's just a little tip of the iceberg. But I want to mainly focus on what the argument is. Should we uphold the law, or should we just get rid of it and we don't have to obey it? That's my goal today, John, is that we do need to obey the law to the best of our ability, only in faith, though. If I may, real quick, Romans chapter 9. And then, like you said, it is a bit challenging to remember everything that was said. But I'm just going to try to do the best that I can and keep with kind of the flow of what we're discussing here. But Romans chapter 9, starting in 30. And it says, what shall we say then? That Gentiles who did not pursue righteousness have attained it, that is, a righteousness that is by faith. But that Israel, who pursued a law that would lead to righteousness, did not succeed in reaching that law. Excuse me. So, Gentiles did not pursue righteousness, but obtained righteousness through faith. Israel pursued the law as to righteousness, but they did not succeed in reaching that law. Why? Why did Israel fail? The reason why is because they did not pursue the law by faith, but as if it were based on works. they have stumbled over the stumbling block, the stumbling stone. So it's my understanding that if we pursue the law with faith and with the Spirit, that we can uphold it and we can keep it in the Spirit of the Most High, because that's what Yeshua did, is he kept the law, he fulfilled it, he observed it to a T without failing once. So one more thing, and I'll back up, and that is, you mentioned, give me just a second. You mentioned, contradictions. You seem to see contradictions, and you gave an example of, well, the law says that you can have a divorce because of the hardness of your heart. Well, Yeshua says that you cannot divorce your wife unless sexual immorality. So my question to you is, John, do we have a loving Father who desires to give us the desires of our heart?
The desires of our heart. Are you speaking of after we are regenerated? Because in our sinful state, right? Just in general?
Yeah, I'm talking about just in general, as human beings and as men and women and children. Do we have a Father that desires to give us our heart's desire?
I think it's going to depend what you mean by that. Because...
Okay, for example, I'm assuming you're single. If you desired a woman of the faith, do you think that Yah would help you to achieve that?
Yeah, I think you can do that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's say you desired a really good job. Would he desire to help you get that?
Right. I just want to make sure we're drawing the distinction between like sinful desires and then genuine desires that are glorifying.
Right. So man is capable of giving good gifts. Right. The scriptures talk about that. Is, the Father desires to give you good gifts. Men have a desire to do good, but there's a war going on, right? Romans talks about that, about the war between the mind and the flesh. So what I'm just simply trying to get at is that the Father desired to give the children of Yasharel what they wanted. And that's what they wanted. They wanted the ability to divorce their wife if they were not pleased with her. But Yahusha took it to a whole nother level and said, look, it's not a change in the law. All it is a reinforcement of what was already there. He's like, look, divorce is okay. I hate it, but I know that you guys are desiring it. So here it is. So therefore, you can divorce over sexual immorality. I hope that makes sense for somebody.
Okay. Actually, before I go there, let's open up. I believe it's Deuteronomy 24, 1-4. About 10. Okay. All right. I want to cover. I think I want to cover that point on divorce mainly. Just want to clarify, when I talked about contradictions, I wasn't saying that the Bible itself has contradictions. I believe in inerrancy. The point I was making is that on face value, it seems like, well, Jesus seems like he's just contradicting the Old Testament. So what's actually going on? And I was trying to make the point that, well, if Jesus has, why would he make those teachings that sound different than certain Old Testament commands if the law was not going to be fulfilled within a short period of time, right? Like, how can I follow those teachings if they are contrary to the Old Testament if the law is still yet to be fulfilled? So that was the point I was making. Now, on that point, right? So Deuteronomy 24 has the laws concerning divorce. When a man takes a wife and marries her, if she finds no favor in his eyes because he has found some indecency in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house, and she departs out of his house. And if she goes and becomes another man's wife, and then I think it goes on to talk about, let's see, and the latter man hates her and writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house. Or if the latter man dies, who took her to be a wife, then her former husband who sent her away may not take her again, right? So here in the Old Testament, it talks about if she finds no favor in his eyes because he has found some indecency in her, right? So he can divorce her for various reasons. Like he finds something indecent about her and divorces her. Versus up in Mark 10, it's a little different because it says, and he left her there. He left there and went to the region of Judea. And again, it was a custom he taught them. Verse 2, and the Pharisees came up, and in order to test him, they asked. Notice they're trying to test him, right? They're trying to see if they can make him admit something that's not true or whatever. They're trying to trap him. And so it says, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? I'm assuming at this point in time, Yahusha might have at some point disclosed some teaching on divorce, but we'll keep going. He answered them, what did Moses command you? Verse 4, they said, Moses allowed a man to write a certificate of divorce and to send her away. Verse 5, and Yahusha said to them, because of the hardness of your heart, he wrote this commandment. So notice, just first of all, I don't think that this is about giving the desires of the heart, right? If it's speaking of the hardness of someone's heart, that typically isn't language of, well, you're giving someone the desires of the heart in a loving, paternal way. So because of the hardness of your heart, he wrote this commandment. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man separate. Now, I want to ask a question because this is something that I've kind of had in my mind. Are we required, like, for example, are we still required to do animal sacrifices or is it every single part of the law we are required to do? Because remember, if we go back to Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 to 18, it says, not one jot, not one tittle shall pass away. So when people take that to say we should still keep the law, well, then are we keeping all the law? Because typically when I encounter people that say they keep the law, they don't keep every single part of it and say that we don't need to. So just I want to ask that question. Like, are we required to still, for example, make animal sacrifices? Go ahead.
So I will say that in Judaism, and according to Judaism, there is 613 laws. Okay. But we have to understand that some of those laws do not apply to women. Some of them apply to men. So therefore, some of those laws would apply only to women and children. Some of those laws would only apply to you if you were in the land of Yasharel. So therefore, it's broken down into sections like 200 each, like 200 for the women, 200 for the men, and 200 for us while we are in the land. So, for example, you brought up the sacrifices. I truly believe without a shadow of a doubt that the sacrifices will be reinstated during the 1,000-year millennial reign. I also believe that the devil himself, when he puts on flesh and he becomes a man, that he will reinstate the sacrifices as well. So I do believe that we are to keep the entirety of the law. Like, for example, being clean, right? He talks about clean and unclean. He talks about distinguishing between the clean and the unclean, the abominable and the righteous, and things like that. Just like it says that we are to know the difference between good and evil. It's called discernment, right? So yes, I do believe that all of the law is binding on us, and that we are to uphold it, and that the sacrifices will be reinstated during the 1,000-year millennial reign.
So, but what about the here and now, though? Like, is it wrong for me to not ever? I believe there are certain festivals that include sacrifices. If I'm not mistaken. I don't remember off the top of my head. Certain events or something that include some sort of a sacrifice. So, if it what happens with all that, right? When there's those commanded sacrifices, what do we do with that?
Okay.
Like atonement, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like in
So
Leviticus, right?
so
There's a yeah. Go ahead.
so for example, the Passover is to not be done outside of Jerusalem. So therefore, during the 1,000-year millennial reign, we will sacrifice a lamb in remembrance of the children of Yasharel being delivered from Egypt. I consider the United States of America Babylon/Egypt. So we're in slavery. We're in bondage. I can't go out and sacrifice an animal to the Most High because of what that would look like. I could be imprisoned, I could be killed, or whatever. So it's my understanding that now is not the time to be sacrificing animals. And here's something else too, that Yahusha was simply the sin sacrifice. He was not the free will offering. He was not the thank offering. He was not the the free will offering. There's a whole list of what different types of offerings there are, and Yahusha was the sin sacrifice. So I don't believe that we have to sacrifice an animal because you mentioned atonement. We don't have to sacrifice the animal anymore for the atonement of our sins, because he is that final sacrifice for us, and he cleanses us from all unrighteousness through the shedding of his blood. And only through the shedding of blood can one obtain righteousness and forgiveness. He is our high priest, right? In the Old Testament, we know that Aaron was the high priest, and that he went in once a year to atone for the children of Yasharel for a year. So Yahusha is now our atoning sacrifice. He's our high priest. So therefore that is not owed anymore. So now everything else would basically be, a free will offering or a thank offering, or something like that.
So let me ask you this: can we agree that at least some of the laws the Messiah fulfilled? Like, for example, the law of the priest, right? Like, we don't need a literal guy to come up in America, bring a tabernacle here or anything. Yeah, Fight League, you both of you in the chat seek truth and Fight League. You can ask questions if you want. I'll try to get to them. It's just we're in the middle of a discussion, so we might not get to them, but yeah, I'll try it. So where was I? So some like the high priest, right? We don't need a literal dude like a Levite to go into the tabernacle and atone for America and Russia and modern day Egypt or whatever. So can we agree that at least some of the laws were fulfilled by Christ?
Oh, I mean, the Messiah fulfilled it all. But the thing is, we got to understand what the word fulfill means. It doesn't mean like that we don't have to observe it no more. That's what I simply want to keep it as is that the word fulfill doesn't mean that we don't have to observe it. But the word fulfill, in my understanding, is that it means to fully teach, or to bring it upright so that we can understand it the way we should understand it. So yes, I would agree that the Messiah did fulfill certain things, but like I don't believe that Passover is fully fulfilled. And the reason why I don't believe that is because he says, I will not drink of this cup or eat of this bread again until I am with you in the kingdom. So we observe Passover, right? I observe Passover to the best of my understanding, but I don't sacrifice a lamb on Passover, because he strictly says, do not sacrifice the lamb where I've not put my name. So to me, that means that that's in Jerusalem. So, but yeah, we can agree that he did fulfill the law, that he observed it. I think that just means he observed it fully.
Okay, 1 second. So Jacob is asking if you can come up. I try to be careful with letting people up in the middle of a one-on-one discussion. So Jacob, could you just explain, like, do you want to ask a question or something? I want to be sure here, because I don't want to the last time I brought someone up along with me for a discussion, I didn't get to really speak myself. We've been here for an hour and a half. We were able to get our points out. There's a question from Fight League. Before we get to that, I think I wanted to ask a follow-up. So in your understanding of fulfill, right? So there's a fulfill in the sense of it's a show us how to keep the laws. But would you also say there's a sense in which fulfill can mean that he, for example, the atonement sacrifices, right? We don't need them anymore because Christ is the ultimate. So in that sense, could we say that, yeah, there are some laws that Christ fulfilled in the sense that he takes on the role for it, like high priest or atonement?
Yeah, that would probably be, one of the ones that he did fulfill, in that sense that he is that final sin sacrifice for all of mankind. So yes.
Okay. Fight League is asking, can you show us where the Old Testament commands the disciples to baptize them in the way of Matthew 28:16-20? And there's a follow-up here. And why in that verse it says to observe everything that he told them and not what Moses told them. So let me pull it up. Matthew, that's the Great Commission. 28. What do you say? 16-20. So I guess he's asking. Hold on. Let me put this like this so it's easier to see. So I guess he's asking if anywhere in the Old Testament it commands baptism like it does in Matthew 28:19, and then he's asking why Jesus says to obey what I've commanded you instead of saying Moses or things of that nature.
So I would simply respond with, what did all of the priests do before they entered the temple of the Most High? Okay, I'll answer that for you.
Were you asking me, or because that was a question from the live chat, so that wasn't my question. Just
so if we go to, give me just a second. So if we start in like just roughly in Exodus 29, right? In my Bible, it's labeled, the title of that chapter is The Consecration of the Priests. Okay? Well, Peter declares us that we are priests and kings, right? We are a royal priesthood, right? So, according to the Old Testament, before you could come in to the temple or the tabernacle of the Most High, you had to wash, right? So where do we see that, right? The bronze basin, Exodus chapter 30, starting in verse 17. And it says, in verse 18, it says, you shall also make a basin of bronze with its stand of bronze for washing. You shall put it between the tent of meeting and the altar, and you shall put water in it, with which Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and their feet when they go into the tent of meeting and when they come near the altar to minister, to burn a food offering to Yah. They shall wash with water so that they may not die. They shall wash their hands and their feet so that they may not die. It shall be a statute forever to them, even to him, to his offspring throughout their generations. So it's my understanding that this is simply talking about being baptized, washing yourself before you enter in to the presence of the Most High. So he was asking why did Yeshua declare this is what I'm saying and not what Moses said? The reason why is because Yah gave Moses the law, the instructions, and Yahusha is Yah in the flesh. So all of the disciples understood that Yahusha is Yah the Father, and that he simply taught the Torah and the prophets. So when Yahusha said, do this in my name, right? Go to the ends of the earth and baptize and immerse in my name. He was simply giving us more details of the Torah.
Okay. For an hour.
And just real quick, John, real quick, you had talked about how we don't need a priest anymore because we have the high priest. But if you'll go to Isaiah 66, and this is talking about the millennial reign, and it's Isaiah 66, verse 21. But we can start in 20. And it says, and they shall and they shall bring all your brothers from all the nations as an offering to Yah, on horses and chariots and litters and mules and on dromedaries, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, says Yah, just as the Israelites bring their grain offering in a clean vessel to the house of Yah. Verse 21, the key verse, and it says, and some of them also will I take for priests and for Levites, says Yah. So I believe that the Levitical priesthood will be reestablished in the millennial reign, and he will take Gentiles and convert them and make them Levites as priests. And I also believe, and I don't have a scripture right offhand, but I believe that all households will have a Levitical priest in their home, among widows and orphans as well.
Okay. I think we can end here. I'm getting tired, so I think I'm gonna lay down because this chair is not very comfortable.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So thank you for coming. I don't know if
Yeah.
we're ever gonna. I don't know when we'll have our next discussion because I might get a little busy. Like next week, I'm probably not gonna post anything just to kind of see what my schedule is going to look like. And I'm not sure what topic we would cover because we covered almost everything, I think. Um, I mean, if anything, you can reach out to me from email and let me know if there's a specific topic you have in mind because I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover with you. So, Fight League
Um,
says next. Fight League says next if the Father is the Son. I mean, we talked about oneness already, but we can maybe we can cover a singular passage because I haven't done
yeah.
that yet. Like a singular
Okay.
passage to where we're sticking to this specifically. Like we can go to other passages to support it, maybe, but we're sticking to one.
Always, yeah, always reverting back to that one.
Yeah. Or he also suggested if there's more than one person in the Old Testament, we can do that too. But I think for now, I'm going to give it a rest for discussions because I just want to kind of see what my real life is going to look like.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for joining up. Did you want to stay on actually for a little bit? I'm probably just going to switch spots to talk about the verses really quick here that you told me to write down, or you got to go?
No, I don't have to go. So yeah, if
Okay.
you want to spend another 10 minutes or so, that's fine.
Yeah, let's do that off stream though. I'm gonna end it and then just stay there.
Okay. All right.
Um, thank you, Seek Truth. I think it was a great discussion, and indeed. So I'm gonna end the stream now. I'm probably gonna just we'll talk after the stream. Hold on. So thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah. Shalom.
Great discussion. Hopefully many more to
Pray
come.
that,
We'll see.
yeah, pray that somebody was edified, you know.
Right. So that being said, God bless you all and goodbye.